This yin posture is called swan, and there's two variations of it, an upright swan or a sleeping swan. So this is meant to work with the pelvis area, the hips, and you'll likely need some blocks. So we're going to start with the right knee coming out to the right side of your mat, facing the floor. You can come from a table position, sliding your left leg back, bringing the left quadricep, the front thigh, as close to the floor as possible. And then we're going to do a little bit of each. So we're going to start with a lifted swan. If this is regular swan, so if this is challenging to be upright, you can come down partway or come up as high as you can. What we're really focusing on is stretching the hip flexors, the front of the pelvis on that back side, front of the hip, and it may work into the front of the leg, the quadricep as well. And then as well with the bent knee, that right side hip is going to open as well. So if you need to, because of knees or whatever is going on, tightness, you can have a lift underneath your right sit bone in order to even out the front pelvis so it's more parallel to the floor from side to side. And then come up as high as you can, making sure you pull up on the pelvic floor. You bring the front rim of the pelvis back to elongate the low back and sacral area, so you're not compressing there to make it safe. And then use the bones of the hands and the arms to keep yourself upright, this curving out the spine. And the more you can press the left thigh, the quadricep, and the side of the hip down, the more you'll get that side. And the more you drop into the right hip towards the floor, the sit bone, right sit bone, the more you'll get that side. So just feel where you're feeling it. Make sure you're nice and long in the spine. You're extending up and out and forward through the whole of the spine, especially forward with the low ribs, all the way through the ribs, the breastbone, and the shoulders are softening back, shoulder blades down the back body. And then go into your breathing. Add a little smile of comfort. Inhaling through the nostrils, slowly, smoothly, and deeply. Just noticing where you feel the stretching, and as you exhale, relaxing, releasing, softening into it. The angle of the lower leg, the initial stages of it, the foot is going to line up with the left hip crease. And as you get more advanced, to open up in through the bent knee, the right side and this side, the hip joint there, the hip rotators, the more that lower leg will be opening up to become more parallel with the short side of your mat. And then coming into the second part of this, if you're not already, you're going to keep the lengthening of the spine as you come forward, coming down onto your forearms first, so you can really anchor through the right leg, the outer shin area here, the left thigh, even out the pelvis even more, and then pull out from those anchor points on the ground so the spine stays long, so that it's nice and long. You're not rounding the back body here, and then come down even further if you can. Perhaps the forearms are a bit wider here. Perhaps you bring a block underneath your forehead. Perhaps you can come down a little bit more, but just emphasize the lengthening of the spine, the bringing the breastbone forward and then dropping it down so the spine is flat, and then feel that go into the right glute, hip rotators more, perhaps through that right outer thigh. Just feel where you feel it and breathe into those spaces. Softening and relaxing on the out breath. Preparing to come out of this now, lifting head, spine with the help of your arms. Curl the back toes under, and then lift the back knee, and bring your right leg back. You can either come into down dog to stretch out, or into table position. And whatever you come into, just rock the hips side to side, then do some pelvic rolls, circulating that energy in, feeling. Connecting to the spaciousness that you've created. And then prepare to come into the other side. So this time the left knee comes to the outer edge of your mat, and angle the lower leg here again, depending on how much that knee can bend and how tight you are in the hip rotators. You may have the lower leg out more, reaching out towards becoming more parallel with the short side of your mat. And bring your right leg back and straighten it out as much as possible. If you need to have a lift underneath your left thigh, your sit bone, to accommodate any issues going on there, do so. And then make sure you roll your right thigh in as it comes as close to the floor as it can get, so that your pelvis, front pelvis, is as even to the ground, relative to the ground, parallel as possible. And then you're going to start the position in the upright version, if that's applicable for you. And a little twisting of the torso to the left here to make sure that, or the pelvis area, to make sure that it's parallel towards the floor, relative to the floor. And feeling where you feel the stretch. To the front of the right hip, perhaps the quadriceps on the right side, as well as the hip rotator in the left. Perhaps some of the energy of the stretch is going through the glutes, the other thigh, and the left side. Just feel where you feel it and move your breath into it. Providing awareness and acknowledgement with the in-breath. Relaxation and softening on the out-breath. Scanning beyond even the areas that you're feeling most sensation to check in and soften any tension in your mouth, in your face, in your shoulders, neck. Continuing to develop the length of the breath, the smoothness, the evenness between the in and the out breaths. As you prepare to shift into the second part of this, have your supports ready. Keep the lift out of the anchoring point of right thigh, left leg, Lengthen, lengthen, and then come down, focusing on the reach out forward as much as the lowering, so that you're not rounding the spine. Just feel where you can get to in this side, on this side, and perhaps again blocks maybe underneath the forearms, if that help keeps the chest and the upper middle spine from rounding. Or if you can, come down more, perhaps a lift underneath the brow. Feeling how this shifts the stretch for you, more in your left deep pelvis area where the hip rotators are, rotating the thigh, hip joints out externally. Knees can get very tight. We sit a lot. And we do just the classic forward to back movement of the legs, and the rocking, cycling. Bringing more movement and space into the joints, hip joints here, very helpful for knee health. Relaxing through the out-breath. Continuing to consciously lengthen and smooth out the breath, evening it out in terms of the length of inhale and exhale. Preparing to come out of this, lifting the head, using the hands to help lift the spine up enough, flipping the right toes under, lifting the right knee so you can slide the left leg back. And again, you can shift into a down dog to stretch through the joints, or into table position, rocking the pelvis, hips side to side, doing some pelvic rolls. If you're stretching out in down dog, bending and opening the knees side to side. and then simply noticing the spaciousness, more even from side to side.